Today's lesson is over solving quadratics by factoring. And guys, whenever I'm solving something, what does that mean I get? What is my goal? What do I want to find? Solutions. Thank you. Okay, what are solutions? What did we say solutions were yesterday? X-intercepts. So guys, today we are finding solutions or x-intercepts, okay? So yesterday we did it by graphing. Today we're just going to do it by factoring. And the first step to doing this is to move all terms to one side. And then we'll set the equation equal to 0. So let's do an example. I'm going to do number 2 with you guys. Number 2, is the first step done? Is everything on one side? And is it set equal to 0? Perfect. Step 1 is already done for us. Let's look at step 2. Step 2 is just a factor. So let's go ahead and factor this. Now, just a side note, this is the standard form of a quadratic, okay? And when we don't have an A and a C value, we don't do the whole factoring thing like this, where we do an eye chart, 2 numbers that multiply to give you C, add to give you B. That's what we do when we have A and C. In this case over here, we don't have an A and a C value. So I'm going to divide both sides by the greatest common factor. What can these both be divided by? Yes, 4x. So 4x will be on the outside, and let's see what's left over. Those 4 cancel, and x cancels, so I'm left with x. These x's cancel, 8 divided by 4 is 2. So this is how it can be rewritten. So that is how we factor when we don't have both an A and a C value. So let me clarify. Our example here, it has an A value, but it doesn't have C. So when we don't have both A and C, we have to do this thing here. Okay, so now it's factored. Let's look at the next step. We're going to set each factor equal to 0 and solve. So let's do that. My first one, I'm going to set this equal to 0. I'm also going to set this one equal to 0. Now, just by looking at this, before I do this step, what would this number be so that it goes to 0? It would be 2, but let's go ahead and solve for it. We get x is 2. So that's one of my x-intercepts. And this one, if you divide both sides by 4, you'll get 0. Just notice, if we plug a 0 in right here, 4 times 0 is 0, and 0 times all of this is 0. Okay? So those are my 2 x-intercepts. All right, so how we're going to write our solution is x is 0 and x is 2. Those are my solutions. If you were to graph it, it would be here at 0 and here at 2. So I know my graph would look something like that if I were to graph this. Yes? It doesn't matter, but yeah, put it in order. Yes. Okay, or you could also write it like this. X is 0, x is 2. Okay? All right, let's do another example. This is number 4. Notice everything is already on one side of the equal sign, so I'm going to go straight into factoring. So here I have an A and a C value. That's great. But here's a little shortcut that I want to show you. You can do the square root of this, the square root of this, and the square root of this. So what is the square root of 9? 3. 3, and the square root of x squared is just x. And what's the square root of 25? Okay, so now just make 2 of them and make one of them opposite. So I'll make this one plus 5. And the square root of 0 is just 0. So that's how I can rewrite this problem. Let me show you why this works. 3x times 3x is 9x squared. 3x times positive 5 is just 15x. And negative 5 times 3x is negative 15x. So you see how that just cancels out? Okay. And then finally, negative 5 times positive 5 is just negative 25. So we get what we started out with. Okay. So that's just a quick way to do this one. Whenever you have perfect squares, you can easily take the square root of both of those things. Okay, so that's how you do number 4, how to factor it. Now, we still need to follow our steps. The next step is to set each factor equal to 0 and solve. So I'm going to set that one equal to 0 and solve it, and then I'll set this one equal to 0 and solve it. So here, add 5 to both sides, divide by 3, you'll get x is 5/3. Here, you subtract 5 from both sides, divide by 3, you get x is negative 5/3. So those are my solutions. All right, next one. Number 16. Notice, is everything on the same side? No, so we need to do some algebra here. So guys, I'm going to move everything to the left-hand side. So if I move this 2 over, it'll become a -2. And when I move this negative 3x over, it'll become a positive 3x. Okay, so let's see what I have. I have 4x squared plus 41 plus 3 is 44x. 98 minus 2 is 96. And we moved everything, so now there's nothing on the right-hand side. It's just 0. So that was our first step. Move everything to the same side. Now we want to look at our greatest common factor. What can these all be divided by? Yes, 4. So I'm going to divide all of these by 4. So 4 will be on the outside, and let's see what's left over. 4 divided by 4, that's gone. I'm left with x squared. This will be 11x, and this will be 24. Okay, so since I have an a and a c value, I want two numbers that'll multiply to give me 24, but combine to give me 11. Yep, 8 and 3. So those are my two factors. Let's put them over here. We can rewrite this as x plus 8 and x plus 3. Now I'm going to set each factor equal to 0, and then I'll solve. So this will be x plus 8 equals 0, and x plus 3 equals 0. So if you solve, you'll get x equals -8. And if you solve, subtract 3, you'll get x equals -3. So those are your two factors. If you were to graph this equation, or this quadratic, 1, 2, 3, you'll have an x-intercept at -3 and an x-intercept at -8. And it's positive, so it'll be facing up like this. So your graph will look something like that. Okay, this is how we're finding our solutions. Okay, so those are some examples for you. I believe after all these examples, you would be able to do these pages. I'm going to let you guys work on this on your own. I'll be walking around if you need help.